Welcome to Spokes and Strategy, Marketing the Bicycle with Brandon Morphew and Chris Mailman of Miso Partners. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, busy, but busy, pretty good.
Welcome back. I saw your Instagram, some of your stories, and I was a little bit jealous. I'm a big lover of the islands, and I'd love to hear if you're up for sharing. I'd love, before we jump into our topic, sort of rolling into the holidays here. I'd love to hear a little bit about your your trip. I'm jealous.
Yeah, well, may have to skip over the trip home, but the trip in general was amazing. Yeah, first time going to Hawaii, first time going to quite a tropical place like that. Like my family's, I grew up in New England. We'd always go to Vermont and stuff, and we tend to head north when everyone else headed south. So yeah, it was really cool. They came, my cousin came, and yeah, did a bike event there, which was really, really fun. It was a fundraiser for a local charity. And this is Lahaina was the area that was really hit badly by wildfires a few years ago. So there's like 100 people killed, tons. I mean, you can still see where area was just completely erased, where there were buildings, now there's nothing. So yeah, it was great cause, but also just a beautiful place to be. I think like you think of Hawaii as sitting on a beach, but there's definitely a lot more to do. And it actually turns out this was an old place where they held an Xterra race. So one of those those Xterra off-road triathlons. So the friend texted me being like, "Oh, I remember that. Like I recognize that climb. Like I did that when I was when I was doing
Yeah.
Xterra." So it's cool that when you go inland, there's a lot of stuff to do, and it was yeah, a great event, and then just enjoyed a lot of other riding, enjoyed some really good seafood. So yeah, cool place to explore, and yeah, great biking community as well.
Nice. Well, welcome back. I know you had a heck of a trip coming back, so we don't have to relive that. But it's great to have you back. And I will say I've had the good fortune of getting the opportunity to go to Hawaii and work in Hawaii on a couple occasions. Way back when, actually, when that Xterra was going on, I
Yep,
was working Ironman in
Kona.
Hawaii, and then going
Yep.
over, to the Xterra in Maui. So I think really fantastic place. And if we can, we'll put the link to the charity
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
no,
benefiting, and if anyone has the resources, I think it'd be great to help that cause out.
yeah, and even if you want to go to Maui next year, this event is a fundraiser for them, and they have an event this upcoming weekend, which is a road biking, more of like a traditional Grand Fondo they have called Petalumua, which I can tell you, road biking but there are some areas that are just some of the best. I mean, I think bicycling listed one of their routes top 10 in the world most beautiful, and I can see why now. Yeah, it's spectacular.
That's it's quite a place. Every time I go, and I've been, I think, 4 times now. I have this crazy idea that I'm going to move there at the end of the trip, and then that when I come home, I sort of dig into like cost of living and all the realities of and
Yeah.
being on an island, and islands. It's a tough place to be. It is an island, so you're going to see the same faces over and over again. It's
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to commute to Oahu, or go to Honolulu, or you want to commute to Big Island, anywhere, you're taking a flight. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges with that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing it. And it is great cause, and appreciate um, you sharing that. So I think, we're getting into the holidays, and folks are looking for ideas on um, quick wins. So, we chatted a little bit about what are some of the things that you can do this time of year. Yes, we know holiday sales and sort of those things all drive uh, some revenue, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know you've put some thought into this. What are some of the things that you're interested in, and sort of you're seeing that might be beneficial for folks that are listening?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is just thinking about how you can move the needle beyond the traditional sales pitch around the holidays. And so I think that can be ways to get community involvement. So having events where people come in So that's really key because at the end of the day, if you're getting people in the shop, they're probably going to spend some money. They're going to be like, that would be a great gift for my spouse or my kid, and they're going to buy it. And I think it's sometimes, especially as a brick and mortar retailer, it is hard to compete with the sales that, the major online shop or stores are putting out there. And if you can provide an incentive for people to come into the shop, so it could be a holiday party, could be a clinic, maybe it's a trainer session. The weather's bad for a lot of people, not in Hawaii, but uh, around here, we're back in Colorado, to 6 inches of snow on the ground yesterday. It's a good time to do stuff like that, get people in, bring in that community engagement element. Especially, that's kind of what this time of year is about, I think. Like, people think about the holidays, there's obviously different religions and stuff. At the end of the day, you think about light and community and people going to visit family. That's one of the reasons I think the holidays are so special around this time of year, is because it is the darkest time of year in the Northern Hemisphere. And especially if you live up in New England or live in Colorado, or even worse, you live in northern Quebec. Bringing the community together can be a really good way to remind people you're still there, and just because it's winter doesn't mean you're close. So,
And it's a great point. When I think about it, the roles that, we often call these the third spaces. So you have, and I think Starbucks had a whole thing where they wanted to be the third space. That we could argue whether or not they've accomplished that goal. But um, if you think about, like, where are the places where community comes together outside of religion? Because, I think there is, some people have that space. A lot of people don't. It's definitely not as prevalent as it was maybe 50 years ago, where it was much more part of the fabric. And I think bike shops are one of those places. In another lifetime, I owned a yoga studio for 10 years, and that was one of those places as well. So thinking about what kind of role do you want to play in the community, and how can you activate the folks that are already in your community? What are the things you can do? And I don't think it's a one size fits all. I love the holiday party. I love just, like an excuse to bring people together. Obviously rides, like the brave people are doing like yourself, doing the winter rides out in the snow.
no,
Kudos
not
to you.
today. No, today I would be out. Today we were around the trainer, but yeah.
Yeah. The trainer rides, I mean, there's some really fun trainer groups out there, and you can, jump in and coordinate one with your community, uh, whether that's, like a race. There's a bunch of, like, you can do. I have a group of guys here locally that they do a TT series Thursday mornings, every Thursday morning, 6 a.m. They're doing TT races on Zwift. There's a lot of that out there. So there's a lot of those community type activities. And I think, to me, and then the other side is the night rides. You mentioned light, getting out with evening rides, and getting out in the cold, that there's a bunch of things that come along with that. So I am, um, even though it's a dark time of year, I think it's a wonderful time of year to connect it. You have more time. People have need. I think one of the, if you think about how do we bring this to life, how do you get community? You're going to do social media, you're going to do an email, you might create an event on, Eventbrite or one of those platforms, and meet up. You're going to create an event, and you need to get it communicated. So these channels, these tools are wonderful ways to reconnect, to connect, to stay connected. Is there a club on Strava that you're leading? I think these communities are super important, super valuable. So yeah, I think we're gonna speak a little more about email marketing and sort of like database engagement and re-engagement, but on another episode. But I am, yeah, really committed and confident that engaging with the community in this role that bike shops have, to be, a community space, an education space, a place, a safe place for people to, a welcoming place, an inclusive place. These things are all super valuable. And I think there's a great population of people that are riding by. I see it all the time. Where here we are in, I'm in Boston, and there's a large group of folks that are out there in the cold riding, as well as people indoors. So I love that. Anything else you can think about, like last minute kind of things, like if you if you were advising one of our clients and you said, these are the two or three things that I really think right now you should be doing before the end of the year. What would those things be? What are two or three things that you would recommend?
Well, one would be reflect, I think. So think about what you did over the last year. You can look back if you had goals and see, okay, did we accomplish those goals? And even if we didn't accomplish the result, did we execute on what we were trying to do? So like your goal could have been we want to grow revenue to X dollars or whatever. But you also could have had a goal that was we wanted to, do consistent social media 3 times a week for the entire year. Maybe you hit that goal, you didn't hit the revenue goal, and then what that can help you do is think about, okay, how do you want to act going forward to 2026. I think the other thing is, just on the holiday side, think about the little things. So we talk about like stocking stuffers and stuff like that. Think about what do you have currently in your shop that if you walk in as a customer, you're like, I really want that, or, I really want to get that for my spouse. It's not too big a lift for me to get. And so really pushing those, because I think you can still move the needle with the smaller ticket items. So rather than just being like, hey, we're trying to sell X number of bikes this month, thinking about, what can we do at the end of the year to maximize the season, and it doesn't have to be the big things. So yeah, I'd say reflect, and then just reflect and focus on the little things when it comes to selling at this time of year.
I think that's great. I do. I think it's, if you think about the tools we use, search engine optimization, advertising, you know, promotions, whether they're price promotions or loyalty promotions. I think that a lot of those, your insight around, think about the customer and think about like what they're coming in for, that sort of empathy first, really putting yourself in the shoes of the customer. Walk into the store, is the signage there? Could you do something with signage? Are there opportunities? Are those, those items that would probably be more likely gift purchases? Have they been moved around? Those types of things. So I think there's a lot you can do in the store, but driving traffic in. I mean, I'm very bullish on re-engaging with your database. So whether that's on social, whether it's on, email, SMS, I mean, those tools are really fantastic, and it doesn't all have to be about price and discounting. So um, yeah, I think those are good suggestions. So I think, that empathy piece can be really helpful in a lot of places, like putting yourself in the shoes of the receiver of that email. How is this going to land? What are they thinking about now? What is on their mind? And it's probably a big ask to think about segmenting and things like that. But this is a good opportunity to, get that communication out and think about, there's lots of reasons to come to the store. There are lots of reasons. And I think, yeah, I think we've mentioned a few, and there's bound to be a whole bunch more that we haven't mentioned. So you also hit on, reflection, and that has me thinking a little bit about thinking forward and planning. And the other thing at this time of year that's, I think, super valuable is thinking about 2026, thinking about like, what does this next 12 months look like? What are my goals? You know, yes, reflecting, like what did I plan in 2025 and how did I do? That other side of the coin is, what's next year look like? And what am I going to do in, I think sales is a fairly um, large goal. It's nice to break it down into different categories. So, thinking about service, thinking about parts and accessories attached to service, things like that. So I know we have a webinar coming up. I'm not sure timing wise if this podcast is going to come out before or after that webinar, but we're working on that right now. What are some of the big um, big sort of pieces from a planning point of view on the marketing side that listeners should be thinking about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think one thing is what are the new tools going to be? So, we're talking a lot about AI, but it's moving so fast that you really need to be thinking ahead. And then also just thinking about the industry and forecasting. So like, where your supplier is going to be. So when it comes to thinking about how you're going to be marketing what you're going to be focusing on, it also helps to, you're probably placing preseason orders at this time of year. So you need to be thinking, okay, what aspects of marketing worked. So say if we pushed a lot towards mountain bike riders and kind of on the higher end segment, did that work this year? Okay, well if it did, maybe you want to be thinking about that when it comes to your preseason order. If that didn't work, maybe you need to look at your email opens, see what people are clicking on, see what's doing well on social media, and that can help dictate the orders you're placing so that you're placing preseason orders that are going to move the needle for your customers. So yeah, I'd say those are kind of the main things from my perspective that seem important. And I think also, you know, what to focus on. I think just to step back, the first thing is if you can after the holiday season take a little bit of a break. You can obviously as a shop owner you can't really ever fully take a break, but it will go a long way to bring new energy in the beginning of the year, and also sometimes stepping back for a little bit can bring you a new perspective, which can actually help a lot. Whereas if you're kind of just constantly in the daily grind, you kind of lose the forest for the trees sort of thing. It's just good to step back for a bit and be like, okay, hold on, like what are we doing? Is this working? So
Yeah, so I really like, so again, to the reflection, like what worked this year? What are the things, celebrating those wins, that's super important. What are the things that as a business owner move the needle for us in a positive way? And then also, what are the things that didn't work? Like you can learn, did those things not work because we didn't follow through? Did they not work because, we were talking to the wrong audience? Did we not, talk to the right folks? There's a there's a whole bunch of things. I think about, one of the things that's like fascinating for me in marketing is the funnel, right? So um, you have all these different marketing touch points. So you're sending your emails, you're doing social media, you have your text message, you have your emails, all of these different ways that you're reaching out to your audience. And some of them are new customers. There's really only two customers, right? There's new customers and existing customers, right? Otherwise, there's no customers. So you're trying to bring in the new customers. You're trying to talk to the existing customers and have compelling reasons for coming in. And in that funnel, like as you're bringing them in, like, you warm them up, you give them a compelling reason to come in. There's so many places in that funnel and I love the analogy of like where it can leak, like where it can be broken. And so you can do all the things right, like in the ads. And then a good example is when somebody gets to a landing page, it just turns them off. You didn't connect with them, or they got bored. They came in and they wanted to get the service and they couldn't find the appointment, or there wasn't a way to book appointment on the service page. And so there's so many ways that a funnel can break. And I do think, a marketing funnel, you can apply that idea to any one of your marketing activities. Like at the end of the day, they all really are different parts of different funnels. It's whether that's your email, your social media. The end goal is to get customers to come into your store or to buy from you if you're selling online. So I think stepping back and understanding like what did we do, and did it win and why, or did it lose and why? Understanding why, like what went wrong, can be just as impactful because then you can adjust. And the more you think about it, the more you have the KPI that you're tracking, the more that you understand like the different points along the funnel that could be leaking. The better you can. All right, they got to the landing page, but then they fell off. What happened? Those sorts of ideas, and I think it can be. a little daunting at first, and it with time, I think you can get good at. You have to, you have to dedicate some time. We dedicate time to it. That's our job. But I do think there's something, kind of for me, I love the idea of this problem, this challenge. It's kind of a puzzle. What are the things that we're doing that are working well? What are the things that we're doing that don't, and how can we adjust? And so
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I was gonna say as well, I think with the funnel, I think what's different about brick and mortar versus say purely e-commerce is the funnel isn't a linear path. So it's especially with brick and mortar, you could have someone enter the funnel in one place, jump to another kind of section different funnel, and then maybe shortcut a bunch of steps. And so you have to think about it that way as well. Like, say for example, somebody comes in, um, signs up for your email list, and then they go to an event. So those are kind of two different pathways. Maybe you have the community pathway where you're doing in-person events and stuff, and they are still receiving emails in the initial funnel. You have to think about that as well. And it can be really hard and daunting to keep track of everything and to analyze it because at the end of the day no one's even if you're selling online probably only a small bit of your business. It's not like you can track, okay, here's this person's email, here's exactly where they've gone. It can be a little bit more complicated in person, especially if you're not collecting their email with every checkout or they're using a different email. And so I think you also have to keep in mind that people yeah, it's not a linear process, and there's no one exact way to do it. And you have to just think of it that way. That you're going to have people that are moving laterally as well. But at the end of the day, your goal is just to keep them in one of these funnels and one of these ways that you're able to capture their attention and get in front of them constantly. And then at the end of the day, that will lead them to becoming a customer. And hopefully, once you get them in the shop, the easiest part of the job should be keeping them as a customer.
I appreciate you mentioned the email side, and I think um, it's one of the things. So it can feel awkward. I do know, like the POS systems can be really challenging to get to capture the customer's information to sort of like bring them into the fold, and that CRM, that whatever you're using, that platform, that is gold. Like that the number one ROI tool in marketing is email, and SMS is great, and marketing messages in SMS, especially if they're targeted and really, service is a really good example. Fantastic way to talk to your customers, and response rate is super high, but it's precious. You want to be cautious about communicating too much. But email, without exception, I don't think anyone communicates enough in email. Good partners are, communicating weekly and even multiple times a week. And a lot of folks don't use their email. It's another thing that they have to do. It's another task. And so this is off the top of my head, so apologies if I'm wrong, but I think the ROI on email is like 3,600% or some ridiculous number like that. Like it is
Yeah,
for every
it
job,
doesn't
for
cost
every job, it doesn't cost almost anything.
you
Exactly.
when we talk with clients and they're like, does email cost something extra? And I'm like, yeah, it does. And they're like, oh, how much? And it's like $10 per thousands and thousands of emails sent. Like it's nothing at the end of the day. Like it's you sell a pump and you've made that back. And I think the thing is also that I struggle with email is again like the perfection versus just like getting it out there. At the end of the day, most people, and I hate to burst your bubble, not you specifically, but people listening, most people are not reading your whole email. Most people are scrolling through, and you can see in good email systems how far they scroll because you'll see on click rates, you'll see a drop off as
Mhm.
you go down the email. So you have to
Yep.
think about how you lay out your email. But what you could do is you create a template, that's your format. And it's beneficial for you because it's easy to duplicate, you can fill in the content. It's also beneficial for the user because they get used to this is what I'm used to getting from this shop. I know where stuff lives. I know, okay, they're always going to have this sort of section. They're going to have some like, information, maybe events, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I know the look is familiar. And so you may not realize this, but if there are marketing emails you open all the time, you're like, oh yeah, it's just like it's a familiar look. Even if they took out all the names and all the text, you'd be like, I know who this email came from. And it's
Yeah.
not just colors, it's shapes, it's the layout, it's everything like that. So just trying to break it down and make it as simple as possible so that you're getting those emails out consistently. And also just segmenting as well. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to segment down to this person. We're going to have one email segment for people who purchase size large, you know, size large, specialized Ally, Ally sprint frames like that. That's probably too specific. But maybe you have a segment for people who purchase kids bike products because then you can send out an email that's targeting those people and then they're getting something they're actually likely to open and they're actually interested in it. They're interested in it. Whereas if you send an email about, top level $12,000 bike to a family who at the moment is just like, we've got three little kids. We're not spending the money on that stuff for the adults, but we do need to spend money on stuff for the kids. It's not applicable to them. So you just have
Yeah.
to think about those things and just simplify it as you can while also providing quality content that people are actually interested in.
Yeah. I think there's two things that jump out at me. One is that front end interaction. So really getting good about like tagging or at least capturing the information, attaching it to a purchase so you can
Yeah.
segment customers by what they bought. That is really valuable. For whatever your the end goal is, you can adjust your strategy based on what you're trying to accomplish. But that is, and then the other is, going back to the content piece. I think we all have a tendency, because we're hungry for sales, we all have a tendency to want to like sell, sell, sell. So we want to lead with discounting. We want to put in, deal, 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 and Black Friday. All these things are important. I'm not saying you shouldn't deal, and I think there's so much more. Going back to the original, when we started talking about like the holidays, community. What are the community building activities? What are the things, or attaching to another community, engaging with another group that's tangential to your business, whether that's the yoga studio or the coffee shop, the value driven, values first. What am I? How am I going to serve my customers, my community, versus how can they serve me? That shift in mindset is really, really, I think, essential, because the how can I serve you and what can I do for the customer versus what can the customer. I mean, it just, it's unsubscribed. That's the difference, right? It's just like, this is, and so it's hard. There's a lot, you have to think about it. You have to spend some time, and this is a great time to do that. It's, planning as we're rolling into 2026, planning, I think is essential right now. So, um, thinking about the holidays and what kind of value, I mean, like winter riding, we talked about it, training, like all the things we just talked about are all interesting to customers. They're interesting to people who ride bikes. I mean, that's part of the whole deal, right? Is what's interesting. Going to Hawaii, I mean, you just went. It's a really interesting thing. Like,
Yeah.
I could go to Hawaii. Like, you can do that. Oh, on your bike, and you went and yeah, you can do that. That vacation on your bike is a wonderful thing. That's for me. That's at least 2 trips a year. Usually, it's a flyaway somewhere, and then it's at least one, long weekend trip for me. Not to mention events, races and things like that. But
Yeah.
for me, like that's part of joy. The joy of vacation for me is, where am I going to find my bike?
Yeah, well, it's also like, obviously we live in a society where people love things, and at the end of the day, in your bike shop, whether you like it or not, that's how you survive. And I
Mhm.
think cyclists on the enthusiast side definitely love purchasing new things, but also seasonality is an interesting issue with bike shops because obviously it's associated with the slowdown, which is true, but it is an opportunity because if you live in a cold climate and you're going to ride all year round, you have two choices. You get really good clothes, or you buy a trainer and a really nice whip setup. Those are your options, or you get, an indoor bike. And and so you have this opportunity where, for example, if you host a group ride outside in the winter, and obviously hosting it in a snowstorm, not a good idea. I've done those before. But hosting it, in colder weather, maybe it's just like there's a little bit of snow on the ground. Suddenly someone's like, damn, I'm looking at, people go shop at this shop and they've got all this nice winter clothing they're really comfortable and they're smiling and I'm absolutely miserable. They're going to come into your shop and they're going to buy that clothing because, at the end of the day, yeah, it costs money, but it's also like people were like that was really fun, but it would have been more fun if I had been comfortable. Or, I feel like I'm missing out on these Swift rides and like, I would love to have a nice indoor trainer set up. Same thing. And so I think there's just like a lot of interesting opportunity in the cycling space where people do like purchasing gadgets and they don't have to be big gadgets, but like the things that improve their ride or things that improve the ride of their kids or make it safer, etc. And there's just a good opportunity there. And I think like shops are missing out on that. They're missing out on in the winter service. Like that's your bread and butter. Like especially when you hit January, the holiday rush is quieted down. People are purchasing fewer things, but every rider is going to need their bike service, which is a great time to do it. Problem is, every
Right.
rider forgets about that until right before the first
Totally.
warm week,
Hmm.
and if you can, and then they're annoyed because the wait is a long time. They don't have it on that first warm week. If you can get in front of them and be like, hey, you know, we're doing a service special, or even if you're not doing a service special, our turnaround times are really quick. We're gonna have plenty of time to really focus on your bike, make sure everything's perfect. And when it comes to spring, your bike's gonna be ready to go for whenever that first warm day is. Like there's so many little things that I think, yeah, you can take advantage of as a shop at this time of year. So it's actually
Just
exciting.
just educating. So, like,
Yeah,
to your point, right? Like, why do you need to get an overhaul? Why do you need an overhaul on your bike? Why is that important? Why
yeah.
do you need your shocks serviced? Like, why do I need my suspension service? Why do I need new tires? Like, what
You don't
like
need tires. You can just the strategy is I shouldn't be saying this, but you just run them until they're slick. You've invented a new tire. No, you definitely
you
need
be
new
careful.
tires.
You'll get some important sponsors listening, I'm sure. So I did want to call out beyond Zwift, you've got Ruby, you've got Training Peaks Virtual, there's Be Cool, there's Kino
My
Map,
whoosh,
there's My Whoosh, there's a bunch of other providers. So I do use Zwift. I've also used Training Peaks Virtual. I have used Be Cool, and so they're all good. So I think that Trainer Road, I've used Trainer Road. They're all good. They
yeah,
all have different sort of like sweet spots. So I think it's not one, but Zwift does kind of they do have a bit of
yeah. Other options
a
are
a
available.
lock on it.
They are
Yeah.
available. It is, but I think what's cool about all of those, not all of them. So like training roads, they do group workouts, but it's less of a community thing. But most of these are community based programs. So
Yeah.
the idea is you're riding with other people, and it is cool because you can be cooped up in the house and you can still ride with people. So what happens a lot is people will put together a Discord channel, chat with each other.
Mhm.
They'll do a race, do a group ride. You can do group rides where getting dropped is not an issue. So, you talk about outdoors, there's drop and non-drop group rides. You can, it's like a leash where literally everyone will stay together no matter what
Yep.
power they're doing,
Mhm.
which is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
So I think it's, yeah, it's really cool. And like, I don't personally love riding indoor trainer, but I will say that, it is like I'm doing a trainer challenge this weekend. I got some panic training in for that today, but it's a fundraiser, and so that's also a great option. Is if you could. There's a local organization that wants to do a fundraiser. You could do that inside your bike shop, and you get you know 20 people riding the trainer together, which makes it pretty fun. You have food after stuff like that, and I think it's yeah. There's a lot of cool opportunities. You just have to think about what your customers want. And also at the end of the day, you could try something, maybe it doesn't work. You can try something else. And for events like this, you don't have to spend a lot of money on them. You can just do something basic and it's not like you're putting huge investment in having it, flop.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a nice thing about this.
Well, the old adage, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think that to me, the thing is, in order to get momentum, in order to build momentum, in order to get something going, just like on your bike, you need to do some work. Right? We all don't start our day at the top of a hill and just ride downhill all day. Like that's not it's nice. E-bikes are great. You can get some momentum, but the analogy is good. It takes some effort to get momentum going. It's much less effort to keep momentum going. So where are the
Totally.
things as you're thinking about 2026, where are the things that you want to invest from a momentum point of view? Because 2026 is going to come either way. I think, um, it's coming fast. So I appreciate all the ideas and sharing. I hope this is valuable to folks that are listening. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything else before we jump, but I wanted to thank you for taking time to chat, Chris. And again, welcome back from your trip, your travels.
Yeah, I think I think it's just it can be a stressful time of year. It could be an exciting time of year. But at the end of the day, it's like uh, you know, there's a lot to be gained. And yes, you can lose stuff, but it's a cool time of year to experiment because you're going to be busy for a short period, but also that you're going to have a little bit of runway after. And it's a good time to also make changes. Start thinking about making those changes because you have that period of the year where things are quieter and you can make those changes and experiment versus trying to do it in June when things are really really cranking up, and then that can be a challenge. So I think it's yeah, cool.
Oh, right on. Well, um, appreciate your time again, and thanks everyone for listening. We're misopartners.com, the business, but if anyone, we do have a webinar coming up next Thursday and a week from today. I don't know if this podcast will come out before or after, so if you missed it, uh, shoot me an email, Brandon@misopartners.com, and I will be happy to send you a link to the webinar after if we did miss it. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day and a great week, and we'll talk to you in the next episode. Thanks.
Awesome.